we ended up going back about 2,500 years. I was talking to her in English. And when she entered that memory of that life, she switched language. She didn't speak Japanese. This is Aage Nost. And I was born and raised in Europe on a farm back in Norway. And I came to the United States at the age of 25 to go to flight school. I did that. I flew for a living for 23 years. We owned a flight school, international air taxi, and an air carrier for years. And when I quit flying there, then I started doing other things, diving into the mind, finding out who we are, what's in there, what can we do? Are there any limitations or are there no limitations? And I, amusingly enough, have found there are no limitations. I've been doing hypnosis for about 50 years. And also, I hosted and produced 2 TV shows in Tucson for 6 years, and now I'm doing podcasts and radio shows, and I'm being interviewed all over the world. And beyond that, I don't know, it's just me.
So, were you always interested in like paranormal and things that are a little outside of the box?
I don't know about always. I was born at a very early age when I got to think about stuff, but I had well, some good experiences when I was about 11 or 12, because I got to talk to a friend in the neighborhood and we were talking about UFOs. And I went to the library and I started looking at things and I found out that if these things are flying through the air without wings or engines on them, there has to be something electromagnetic. So I put together a UFO detector and the thing worked because I hooked it up to a bell. So if something is flying through the air using a gravity nullification system, when it is moving, I figured it had to create ripples in the Earth magnetic field, which would affect a compass needle. So I built it around a compass, 2 wires on each side of the needle, and hooked it up through a bell and a battery and so on. And I put it on my windowsill in my bedroom. And I remember the bell went off 3 times. One time I went out, didn't see a thing. I think it was cloudy. But there are 2 other times I saw things in the sky that shouldn't be there. And that's when I started really wondering, what is that? And I got interested enough to start digging into it, and I became kind of almost the outcast in the neighborhood because of it, because I was thinking, talking aliens, and that you didn't talk about that in the a very Christian community back in Norway. That was demons or something else.
Well, I can
But
understand. Again, I think a lot of communities would probably think that still today, but there's a lot of people that have seen things in the sky and they don't know for sure what it is. And some of them behave very oddly. So you built this at 11. Now, how many times did this bell go off to let you
uh,
know there was something out there?
I could have been 12. I'm not sure. But there were 3 times that it went off when I heard it. But when I came home from school, sometimes my mom said, the bell went off up in the bedroom. What is that thing? And there were several times that she heard it go off. And of course, I wasn't there to see it. So the thing worked.
Yeah.
And I have a drawing of it. If anybody want to build this thing, go to broadcastteamalpha.com into the picture gallery. I have a picture of it and the schematics and everything. You can build it, and it'll work for you if there's anything flying around.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I would encourage people to do that. I think that could be a useful device if you feel like you're being contacted by aliens, or if you feel like UFO craft is around. Now, I understand that UFOs often are not visible. They're there, but not visible. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I saw them as light. They were lit up. One of them looked like it could be almost like a triangle, but a very narrow triangle. And the other one was a round thing in the sky.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com. So
But
you
yeah,
didn't see their form specifically, but you just saw lights that indicated what their form possibly was.
yeah, yeah.
Do you
Because
feel like do you feel like you were contacted by entities at all through this process?
I don't know, but I had some ideas sometime that came that could have been planted there by some intelligence. They were really goofy ideas for a young kid like that when I was back there. But I, even though I've been a hypnotist for many, many years, I have never gone. Hypnotizing yourself is self-hypnosis. And you can only go so far because you still have to have consciousness enough to be able to direct yourself. And that's why maybe I should get with Nori on that sometime and go back and see if there's anything there like implants or something like that. But that could be an interesting adventure.
It really could. You know, I worked for a long time with the UFO community and did a lot of regressions with people that felt like they'd had contact with alien beings, and just some really interesting things come through. But like you, I have never gone through a hypnotic session for myself regarding that particular issue.
Yeah,
I think some of us are researchers, and some people, you know, actually have contact. It's hard to say for sure if either one of us have, but it would be an interesting process. If you do
yeah.
that, let me know. I'd be interested to find out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And I actually did one session like that with Nori Love, and she took me back, and we had previous lives together. So, by the way, that we made that into a show that is also on YouTube and many other places. The title of the show, if you go look at it, you can find out what a hypnosis session really look like. That is go um, Nori hypnotized Aage live. There's a title to that, and that's about 5 years down into the stream on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's on your channel.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also on broadcastteamalpha.com, you have it there too.
Okay. And what is your YouTube channel called?
Broadcast Team Alpha.
Broadcast Team Alpha. So if anyone wishes to see that hypnotic session, they can go in there and view that, because that too could be a very fascinating thing. You know, hypnosis is such a valuable tool for
Yeah.
so many things. I mean, I used it initially just for the normal concentration, you know, weight loss, quitting smoking, you know, the passing a test, you know, that sort of thing. And then it kind of rolled over into this other world of regression work and accessing memory that's lost, and especially with the UFO community, but also the past life regressions as well. Just did many of those. But
Yeah.
also another part of hypnosis that I found it to be really valuable for is going into these other altered states of consciousness where you have access to information that you don't have just in your waking state normally. I know you are also interested in accessing information from other realms or other dimensions. So, what all have you done in that regard?
Well, there's several areas there probably. One of them is that I'm also an astral traveler. Well, we call it astral travel. It may not be, but it may be consciousness travel. But either way, you can get out of the body into another dimension, and you can move around, you can see things, you can participate in things, you can actually visit people in a matter of a few seconds. You can go somewhere 1,000 miles away and observe things. And that is very interesting because that realm That is the fifth dimension. That's outside of the three dimension that we're looking at right now, plus time, which is the fourth dimension. And then there you go, you got the fifth dimension. And there's a lot of goofy things there that if you don't understand the environment you're going into, it can appear scary to you.
And in what way might that appear scary to someone?
Entities or things out there that you totally unfamiliar to you. And the entities that are out there are usually disembodied spiritual entities. And I found that most of the ghosts that we call them, or spiritual entities hanging around outside of the physical, they are people, disembodied entities with very little spiritual knowledge, like atheists, because they don't think there is anything afterwards whatsoever. That's just, when I die, that's it. Well, boy, are they going to be surprised. And then they know, wow, I was wrong. Now what do I do? They don't know what to do. And most of them probably are, when people drop the body, somebody comes and meet them. There's this saying that nobody dies alone, and there's something to that. But once in a while, there are people that get stuck out there and they don't know what to do. And here, there will be a day. Well, the rumor on the street is that all of us will have that experience of dropping the body. It's a persistent rumor, so we probably could expect that to happen someday. But if it happens, use, this is important, use the spiritual telephone. There actually is one. That is that everything outside of the physical or the lower astral worlds is telepathic. Thoughts, the images, and so they transmit, and other entities will pick it up. If you visualize, let's say your mom, if she passed on earlier, visualize her and put a really solid mental image in your mind, and then tell her, come and get me. Chances are she will get the message, and she may come and probably tell you, hey son, you graduated, didn't you? Well, let's go home. So there is ways out of everything. There's always solutions if we know about them or are able to come up with them and think about it.
I think that's good advice for anyone that might remember that, as you cross over. But yes, I've also heard that generally there's someone there to greet you and meet you, and even sometimes in near-death experiences where people decide to come back, there will be those people trying to negotiate, I guess, whether they're going to pass on or come back into this physical realm. And, and at that point, they bring back a lot of information in through near-death experiences. Have you worked with anyone that's had one of those?
Yeah, not for a very long time, but I did a few hypnosis sessions probably 30 years ago now, where there were somebody that went back and they found themselves, that was a near-death experience, and they came back and couldn't remember much, but we did a session and then we brought out the rest of it. There were, I think there was a family member, there was a spouse at the other end of the tunnel. They went through a tunnel, and at the other one and said, hey, can't come here yet. You got more work to do. You got to go back. And then they ended up back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've known people as well that and they describe a lot of the same sort of process. There's, kind of a tunnel and a light, and then someone meets them, and there's, then there's a discussion about things. And most of the time, the people that I've talked with, they do decide to come back because there's family, there are children, there are, their loved ones here. And even though they feel this sense of tremendous relief in moving
Yeah.
into that realm because all the physical pain is gone, all the emotional pain is gone, and they're able to, to just lift up out of this physical realm. But then
Yeah.
they have the attachments here, their loved ones, and maybe some things that unfinished business that they
Yeah.
haven't quite done yet. So they make their way back to the physical, and some of them have more to say than others. And this one lady told me about it was like they showed her the universe, and this it was like a river of energy flowing, throughout all of the universe, and they described how everything was interconnected. And she came back with this sense of reality that was so expanded from before. So she was just really amazed at that. It did kind of shift her whole perception of life, because she had to still work with, doing the dishes and laundry and the kids and all of this. But yet she had this awareness now that life really was so far beyond just our everyday activities that we're responsible for. And it encompassed this enormous amount of energy of the universe.
Yeah. And there's another thing too that I don't hear anybody talk about, and that is that love can be a double-edged sword. And that means that when someone drops the body, if they have a very strong feeling of love for family, for a spouse, or a business, they may not want to move on and go home. They might hang around here and see that everything is okay. And it's usually a very emotional experience. When you really love someone, you want to make sure they are okay. And you get stuck here because this is not our home. This is just a temporary, illusionary experience that we are experiencing here. So when you drop the body, we're supposed to go home and get re-educated, have the life review and all the good stuff on the other side. And then we can come back here and visit. But that is different. Now we can come back with solutions. We have more power. We can actually give them signs that, yes, we are still here. Because if you just hang around after you drop the body, you don't really know what's going on. You don't understand the abilities that is available to you as a spiritual entity.
That's
Could that
true.
make sense?
Yes, there's so much that we don't understand because we get so caught up in just
Yeah.
living a life rather than exploring many of these things. And many people don't explore these until much later on in their life because of that.
Yeah.
Going back to the work that you did with hypnosis, and I'm sure you had some really interesting experiences throughout that part of your career and working with people. Can you share some of those experiences, some of the
Uh,
revelations that might have happened?
I think probably the most extravagant one is where that was way back in Minneapolis when I lived up there. Um, there was a lady that wanted to do a time regression, go back and find out things. And we did that, but we ended up going back about 2,500 years. And she explained her life in the mountains in Japan. Now, the goofy thing that happened is that I was talking to her in English. And when she entered that memory of that life, she switched language. She didn't speak Japanese. Actually, it wasn't even Japanese. It was a dialect we found out later that was abolished 1,000 years ago or more. And what she did is she explained her life in her language, and I didn't understand a thing, but I kept asking questions, and she answered. So I figured, okay, there is something coming back here. So I just kept asking questions. And she then answered. And when we were done, I ran the tape because we recorded it. And her jaw was sitting on the floor. She just had, no idea that this could happen. And I didn't know what to do with the tape, so I hung on to it for a while. And then I talked to a guy that was interested in these things. And I told him about it, and he says, "Oh, I know what to do." He says, "I know a guy down at the University of Minnesota. He's a language scholar," he says. So here's his phone number. Call him. And the guy said, "Well, send me the tape, and I'll see what I can come up with." I sent him the tape and a little explanation of the lady and so on, and I didn't hear any more from him. 6 months later or more, I got an envelope. I got an envelope, the tape in it, and a partial translation from another language scholar at the university in Osaka, in Japan. And he said he was probably about half of it he could still translate. But he said this is a dialect that was abolished over 1,000 years ago. There's no way anybody could know this. But she did.
Well, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I have known of people. Now, I haven't taken anyone back myself, but I have known of people who have done a similar thing. They start speaking another language,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's always correlates with the life they're remembering. I knew someone
Yeah.
from France, and they had that same experience. And more than once, they would go back to that life because they wanted to explore it thoroughly. So they did more than one hypnosis session, and they would always flip into this French language, but also it was a different dialect than exists today. So it was in that
Mm.
appropriate for that time frame. So
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that we're able to access that. Now, where do you think that memory is stored?
It is not in the brain. It is in the consciousness. Consciousness never dies. It follows you from lifetime to lifetime. And the part of the consciousness that involves one lifetime only that you are living now, that's the one you are aware of. But the others, they are veiled. But it is there. You can access this when you get deep into theta. You can reach beyond the physical and the present consciousness into the universal mind where everything is stored. And okay, past, present, and future is stored there. Because if you thought of something and place it in the future, you give it a low form of life. It's a created thing. So you can access it. And this is something that my partner on the broadcast team Alpha show, my co-host there, she does hypnosis. She does something that I haven't seen anybody else do, and that is she puts somebody under, take them forward in time to meet themselves. Chances are that maybe you're a little smarter about things in the future. You already had an experience you're working on right now, so you know the outcome. So you can discuss it with yourself and find out, what did I do to make it work? Or what did I do that really screw it up? So you won't do that again. That way you will create a different timeline where you did not have those thoughts that caused the thing to screw up. Now you can go and create a new timeline with the good things in it. This is one of the things we do in the mastermind sessions we do on Sunday. We have created a very powerful group of people. We create out of seemingly nothing sometimes, especially healing and things like that. And we reach into the quantum field and access the healing that is already there and bring it here. And it happens sometimes very quickly.
That's an amazing thing that you talk about there. I'm putting together a book and a course right now called Superpowered Insight or Spy, where people can learn how on their own to just go into their past, present, or future and be able
Yeah.
to see their life to help them to orient themselves toward, having a better life, having a life that is rewarding to them. And just to be able to see those things is just phenomenal. That came
Yeah.
out of my realization that my entire life I've actually done that. And even though I've taught a lot of intuitive skills, I had not put this together in this way before. So I think maybe on a scale of global consciousness, maybe we're just approaching a point where that is going to be a new kind of fifth dimensional way of thinking for
Yeah.
humans.
And I also wrote a book where I explain a lot of these things, what's outside of the physical, how to work with it to make things happen your way, the way you like to see it. In fact, if you put my name in on Amazon, and then the book about spiritual science and higher conscious thinking and how to access the universal consciousness will show up, and you can have a look what's in it.
Yes. Well, it sounds like we're so much on the same page with the things that we've experienced. And of course, when you're
Yeah,
working with consciousness and a truthful assessment of consciousness, these are the things that kind of just naturally come forward, I think.
yeah.
So
All we
what
have to step out of the box a little bit, and it's a new world opening up to you. Literally a new world.
That is true. And I think we get so caught up in the programming that we grew up with and assume that's the only way to be.
Yeah,
But just a little expansion at a time can be baby steps, but they can get you into other places where you can perceive lots and lots of things that are very valuable to your path of life.
yeah, yeah. There's so much outside of what we are, what we see on 5 o'clock news TV. I mean, there is, well, I don't watch TV anymore, but there is so much. Once you start stepping outside, start listening to Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, and the videos that I've done, and Sadhguru, and you, and people that is actually doing the research on basis of things that work.
That's true. Absolutely. And it's creating from a different perspective. It's not just hard creation. When you start working with those elements of the in the quantum world, where you're
Yeah,
creating from that perspective, things just you can get into the zone. You can become just more in the flow of what you're creating. That doesn't mean that there won't be ups and downs and all kinds of obstacles that can come into your path, but it just means you know how to go around them more easily.
yeah. And the thing about those obstacles and the nasty things that happen to you, they can be good because good things can come from it.
For
And
sure.
I know because I've had that shock that happened in my life sometimes. And while I had that, that created a phenomenal learning experience, which I gained from later on in other major decisions. I look back and say, nah, I'm not going to do that again. So yeah, we learn from everything, even the negative stuff. And there, I think there's a wiser man than me said that we learn more from the negativity that happens to us than the successes.
That is true because they tend to be more emotional and we store those as a more of a charge in the system in the brain. And so yes, we remember
Mm-hmm.
those. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And many of us learned not don't do that again. Right. So yeah, and it's all just a maze out there. Life is just kind of a maze that we're walking through anyway, trying to figure out how to do the best we can with it. But it sounds like there are many wonderful, good teachers out there to help people to maneuver that maze with more grace. I always said, my goal is to help people move through life with as much grace as possible, so that they have that kind of a crutch to be able to use more of their mind, more of their consciousness, and more of an expanded
Yeah.
fashion. So what else have you learned? What would you advise someone that is listening to this that has never ever stepped out of the box and doesn't know a thing about all of this? What would you suggest to them as baby steps to get started?
Start meditating. Higher consciousness or the access to higher consciousness usually come through meditation. And you can get it from associating with Greg Braden and the people like that, and myself watching videos. You can get some of the information, but meditation exercises the channel from the conscious into the subconscious mind, through the superconscious mind into the universal mind. Without that funnel open, it is more difficult to get input from the universal mind that you can access and use in the present moment here. That is one of the big things that I teach people in my book about the universal mind.
I think also, until you have your own experience, you really, it's just out there somewhere, it's separate from you. But once you can go into that state for yourself, once you have those experiences for yourself, things begin to open up for you and internally, and you know it from your own experiential process. Yes, I agree with you 100%. Meditation is a very valuable tool in that regard.
Yeah.
My channel likes a lot of cryptid things, Bigfoot, Dogman, various other kinds of scary things like that. A lot of people feel like that these kind of exist on that realm that's not quite physical, but almost physical. Have you studied that at all, and do you have any opinion of that?
I haven't been looking at Bigfoot so much until I started following you. That's when hey, this is interesting. So I started looking into that. But I remember a story. It's not just Bigfoot. There's small feet too. And remember a story my mom told me. Uh, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years old or something like that. We grew up on a farm, and we had a large forestry that we owned next to us. And she was on the other side of the forest in the afternoon visiting somebody, and we had a path going through the forest back to our farm. So she went back there, and it started to get a little dark. I understand that she told me. And she was walking, there was winter, and there was a little snow on the ground, and she saw those little footprints on the path, like regular shoes, but they were only that long. And she just followed the footprint, and then the footprint went off to the side, and she followed them. And there was a big tree, and there was a hole in the bottom by the root, and the footprints went into the hole. And she tried to look in there a little bit, I think she told me, but she got nervous about it, so she just left. And she told me where it was, and I remember looking for it, but I never found anything. So there are little guys too, probably a foot tall.
I've heard of those, and I've heard of people seeing those, and either within a dream or else just physically seeing them. And of course, Native Americans for years have talked about the little people that come out and interact with them as well. Many different types. There's the thin kind. There are different colors. There are different attire that they have, and would you say this is related maybe somewhat to the fairy world?
I don't know. Fairies, they fly, and there's pictures of those on the broadcastingalpha.com website. On the picture gallery, I got a picture of a fairy that is about that long, and they are doing forensic investigation. You can see them. She's on the fairy was on the table, and they are looking into it. They had x-rays of it, and they see bones inside of the limbs, and there's a stinger at the end of a tail. So that's a real fairy because it had wings too. But beyond that, there is actually some evidence that there were 1 foot tall people at one time. I don't know if you saw this story, but probably about 5, 6 years ago now, there was a archaeology team that went to Antarctica looking for artifacts and stuff. And they found a stone, a rather big stone. And there was a crack in it. They broke it open. And inside there was a perfectly fossilized human skeleton. When it was curled up a little bit, but when they if they stretched it out, it was about 11 inches long. So yes, there were small people here. Now, the rumor out there now is that it has nothing to do. That was conspiracy theory. Of course not, because I read it in archaeology journals. I think I found one on the internet, and there was another one in the paper form, that this was a real incident. It did happen. And here's another novelty, and that is that we have on our picture gallery, we also have pictures from Mars. The rover took a picture of a 12-foot, it looks like a 12-foot tall person standing, leaning up against a rock. And it is so clear that is absolutely, you can see that is a person standing there. That came out of the Gigapan pictures when they just released it all. So there are little people, they're here and they're there.
I believe there are. Now, folklore has told us a lot about various types of entities and beings that we share this planet with, but it has sort of been shuffled back into something that was just kind of a make-believe or just a fairy tale story of some sort. Have you studied any of the folklore that you feel like has grounds for accepting as a reality?
Say that again.
Have you studied any of the folklore that you feel like is real rather than just something that's a fairy tale?
Well, I think most of what we call folklore, there's something behind it. It started somewhere. It came out of truth, and it may be twisted a little bit over the year, decades or millennia, so it sounds different than what the original version was, but there's something truth behind it, most likely. Especially when the Chinese talk about the dragons. Well, read Marco Polo's writings when he came back from visiting China. He said they had little dragons that was pulling wagons in the streets. So yeah, we have dragons too. But of course, that's only folklore. You know that.
Exactly. So I know that a lot of the people that you mentioned earlier, Greg Braden being one of them, they're seeing the state of consciousness and the state of our world shifting and changing. Where do you think we're headed at this point in time as a human race?
Well, everybody is wanting to go to the fifth dimension, right?
Yes.
I'm not so sure that's really where we should be, because I've been there as an astral traveler. In the lower levels of the fifth dimension, that's not the place you want to be. But the higher levels or parallel universes, there's another Earth in a different dimension in the same location as this one. Slightly bigger, just very little, slightly bigger. That is empty. There's trees, there's vegetation, but there's no people. So that might be where we could end up. You know, the Christians talk about the rapture. People just disappear. That story about people disappearing dates back a long way back into the past. Maybe 26,000 years ago, something like that did happen, as it may do here shortly, because every 26,600 and something year, we go around the great circle of the galaxy. And what happens is that we are passing through a spike of energy coming out from the central sun. When we go into that, that's a higher vibration. We have the chance to ascend into, leave the 3D behind and go to a higher vibration and live there. If we miss it, we may need another 26,000 years. So I don't know exactly how that's going to come out, but I know there's something to that spike of energy coming out, and that some people call it the photon belt, and I'm good with that because it's photons.
I've heard of that. I've been hearing about that for several years. And do you have a time frame now as to when we're going to be passing through that?
We're right on the doorstep of it.
So
We are
probably
it.
within our lifetime, huh?
Oh, yeah, I'm quite sure because we are in that spike now. And I think we just in the last decades or so we have gotten into the edges of that spike, and it's getting stronger and stronger. And that is a higher vibratory energy field coming out there. And that is why the negative forces of this world, the psychopaths that's running government and stuff, they can't really handle this. So they get a little goofy. Look at what's happening right now over in Europe. This is dangerous stuff. And we just got to keep our mind clean, solidify the future timeline that we design in our mind. That's what we do on the mastermind. We have created some very good things for ourselves, and we're not going to be part of all the garbage that is happening around us. It will not affect us because we create in our mind what we like to see in our life and our surroundings. We take that ball of image, place it in the future at a time-coded event, and then go back and forth and visit it every day so you solidify the timeline to that thing you placed in the future. Actually, what you're doing, you lay down attractor strings to it, little thin white energy strings, and that pulls you up that timeline. As long as you keep solidifying that timeline, you're going to end up at that place in the future where the good things are in it that you have already designed into your future. This is another thing I teach in the book. Everybody can do this. Create a mastermind. We have a larger mastermind, but every family should have a mastermind. They should get together, let's say after Sunday dinner or before, decide what do we want as a family, and then decide on it, write it down, and then visualize it so we have the same picture within the family of what we want to have happen. Now we have, and then this is a dream. A dream is only a dream until you put a date on it. Then it becomes a goal. So place that ball of nice things that you have created, put it in the future at a Christmas party or something a year or so ahead, and then go and visit it every day in your mind, and you're going to go up that timeline. This works for us. We have done this, and in that book as I mentioned, I teach you how to do this, and it works so well. Let me just here's a 45-second example of what really can happen when you have a strong mastermind like we do. the one of the guys that is in the mastermind, he said, my wife is in the hospital. She is going down the tube. He says she was there with that disease that we can't talk about over the last several years.
Yes.
And yeah, and he said they are going to put her on a ventilator tomorrow, she said, and also give her that there we go again, medication that usually shut down your breathing, and then it's over the next day. and can we do something with the mastermind? He said, well, we did. We wrapped our mastermind around her, and we visualized her walking out of the hospital, out the door of the hospital. And the next day in the afternoon, he called me and he said, my wife is home. The doctor said, you recovered so fast, there was no reason for us to keep you any longer. Now, the trick about this one is that they don't let you walk out of the hospital. They push you out in a wheelchair, so you're outside of the hospital before they let you go. But she walked out of the hospital as we imaged it.
Yeah, that's
That's
amazing. And don't you think that a lot of that with the mastermind groups, I know, it's the power of so much energy from these people that is so concentrated in making that a reality.
yeah.
And you can do that individually, but there's far more power with numbers.
There are government entities that they know about this, and they have put together masterminds for themselves doing their negative stuff. And it's very powerful. So we have to counter that by creating a separate timeline where all of that stuff they're doing does not affect us.
Yeah, it's a
And we,
self-protection tool, actually.
yep, absolutely.
And what you're really protecting is your energy field and your consciousness field, so that
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have the capacity to really influence
Yeah.
it, or even your timeline,
Mm-hmm.
to really get in the way of your timeline. So maintaining, a positive attitude does a lot. But this is even more than that. This is even a grander scale than just, gratitude and positive thinking and that sort of thing is all good. But this even goes farther than that, and really works with the energies of creation on the planet.
Yeah. Because, quantum mechanics is not showing us we live in a mind-created universe. There are repeatable scientific experiments show that is true. So if that's the case, mind, okay, let's go to work. Actually, I'm pointing to the brain in the heart also because that's where all emotion is created. There is a little brain with about 50, 60,000 neurons in the heart, and that is in hardwired to the brain. So they work together. But when we are engaging the higher consciousness thinking, we totally separate ourselves from the garbage that is going on in daily. Because that mind created universe that we create around us, it is hard to wrap our heads around. But here is a way that actually I can prove it to you with logic and science. The science show it, but the logic says that I'm being a hypnotist. I can put you in a soft chair and talk to you for about 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And I tell you that when I snap my finger and bring you back out, you will see an elephant standing next to you in the room. Okay, if I do my job right, I snap my finger and you open your eyes and you look over and by golly, there's the elephant. You can reach out and touch the snout on and you can feel the snout on the elephant, the rough skin. You can feel the rough skin in your hand. You can smell him. The elephant is real to you, but there's a problem. I can't see him because there's no elephant there. Your mind created that elephant. I just gave you the idea. Your mind created it. That can happen. That proves that our mind can create solid things. Now, we are living in a universe here that has been around for some 14 billion years. It has a little more, you can say, a chance of perfecting itself. So it's more elaborate than that elephant.
Yeah, what I like to say is, it's more solidified because there has just been so much effort and almost pressurized effort in the minds of people to make it
Yeah.
solidified.
Mhm.
And so we all agree, that when we drive down the road is there, a car is there, because we've all agreed that that's the way it's going to be. And when you have one person seeing one elephant, then it becomes real iffy if it's going to be able to stay around for forever. So what happens to the elephant? Do you have to suggest to them that the elephant goes away, or does that elephant stay with them for the rest of their life?
Well, if nothing was done, the outside influences that is stored in his brain eventually will come in and say, "No, there's no elephant. Forget it. Get rid of that thing. It doesn't exist." So eventually the elephant will go away. The better way to do that is just to go back in and say, "The elephant is gone." And then the elephant is gone.
Yeah,
But
that's an important step with a lot of things
yeah,
that we work with. Yes. And even with the regression work, I used to work with people that really were concerned about some things that might have happened to them in past lives, and they brought that in with them, and they wanted to kind of let go of that. So we would work through in the hypnotic session of being able to allow that not to influence
yeah,
them, bring forth all of the learning they had that was helpful to them, but get rid of all of the emotional trauma or anything that might be impacting them today, causing them a fear or something, some kind of an obstacle in their life, to be able to put it basically in context so that no longer rules or controls their being.
yeah. Being afraid of heights could be because you fell and got killed in a previous life situation, or afraid of water, don't want to go swimming. That could mean because you drowned somewhere in the past life. Those memories from that drowning is in the consciousness that comes with you when you take on this body. It is buried in there, but it has residual effects that can show up in form of fear of water.
And there are also a lot of wonderful experiences we've had in the past in learning and training and things that we've worked with that we can access as well and bring that forward. And we want to use a lot of that rich information as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But some of those things, you got to ask for them. If you may have the once in a great while, there are people that is born here that actually remember previous life situations. They don't talk much about it, but they can. There are people that remembers. But for gosh, what was I gonna say? um, we can ask for it. A repetition very often works very well. I have on our website, I have some actually on YouTube more so um, some videos that will teach you how to reprogram your mind, get rid of bad habits, stop smoking and stuff like that. You can reprogram the mind for the success principles that you want to engage in.
That's
But
really good because we sometimes I think people get into kind of a doom and gloom and sort of a, oh, woe is me, and become kind of the victim in life. And the only thing that's
yeah,
creating that is like when they're within their own minds, and to be able to develop the confidence and the perseverance to continue moving forward. Sometimes you just need a little boost, and what you're talking about can really help them
oh
to
yeah.
find the path where it's self-empowering.
Hmm. I know people that has used self-hypnosis going into tests in college, and they ace the test because you are leaving your memories of what you have read wide open. There's also something called eidetic memory. That is, I know two people that have that. I've had glimpses of it when I was teaching the mind development course, SOX Pro. Uh, that is when you want to recall something, you tell your subconscious mind, bring me the image. And then it shows up in front of you. The I guess I can say this. Warren Buffett, he has that ability. He can because I could ask him something, and he he looked down and he says, "Oh yeah," he says in his such and such a book, it's on the right hand column on page 241. He said, "You can read about it right there," because he could see the page. but there was no page there. I couldn't see it. That is eidetic memory. We have access to those things if we practice it. There is a course that actually teaches it, and that is SOX Pro training. And what we did there, we showed people how to assimilate information out of a book at the rate of about 50 to 100,000 words a minute with 95% retention. Because they bypass the conscious mind by just staring, turning pages, 2 pages a second. You take a mental image of the 2 pages, bypass the conscious mind, and put it directly in long-term memory. And later on, you know how long-term memory works. You go back, ask yourself, I want the information, and then it comes back out.
The things that the mind is capable of, and the power within our own brain-mind combination consciousness is just phenomenal. And you know, it's unfortunate that we don't get access to that at earlier ages and be able to just take that learning with us throughout our life. I mean, we would be like super people.
Yep, that's right. That's why Joe Dispenza talked about becoming superhuman.
Yes.
Watch his videos and you'll see about that.
Yes.
They work really well.
I think we're headed into a whole different world if we can just get enough people that begins to understand this and utilize it. And of course, I always couple all of my teachings, of course, with a tremendous amount of love and self-love and love for humanity, and do no harm is kind of my motto. So we learn all of these things and then bring everyone else along with us that they might do it as well. And I think it's important, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing and all of the insights that you have. I'm going to go ahead and end our interview today. I really appreciate you joining me, and we could talk forever about this because it goes on and on and on. And I know you've had a life of learning and progressing and really working with these energies, and so have I. So I'm sure we'll get together again soon, and we'll have yet a whole other grouping of things to talk about.
Yeah, there's so much more to talk about. And if you want to learn more about what I talked about now, or how to manage your mind in ways and use your mind in ways that you normally would think would be impossible, go to Amazon and put my name in there, and the book about spiritual science will come up, and have a look in it.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. I'm going to go look right now. Thank you so much for joining me. We will talk soon.
And in the words of Spock, live long and prosper.